about financial inclusion is to really try to understand, is it just a buzzword that, and sounds like a mouthful, financial inclusion and empowerment. But really, practically speaking, there's a lot of fantastic examples across the developing economies and developed economies of what financial inclusion looks like in practice. For example, the things that I think about is the empowerment of farmers in rural areas. The things I think about is women entrepreneurs and them getting access to loans. The things I think about is SMEs and access to healthcare technology or healthcare insurance through the purposes of financial inclusion. So there's a lot of ways in which financial inclusion plays its part in all of our lives. One of the most important ways in which financial inclusion is particularly pertinent to Pakistan is our documenting our vast and frankly undocumented economy. And giving people access to financial solutions and creating them and bringing them into the fold of the formal economy is really the need of the hour and something that the finance minister talked about and many other speakers have spoken about as well. So with that in mind, I'm going to start us off and I'm going to move over to Rifa Qadri, who's representing Easy Paisa. Telenor Microfinance Bank, having had an incredible sort of infrastructure of Telenor behind it, was able to create Easy Paisa, which has now been leading the charge amongst many other sort of players in the fintech space in providing these kinds of access solutions. I reactivated my Easy Paisa account a few weeks ago, and the process of being on that application is far superior than it has been. I was scanning my fingers, getting verified by Nada. It was a fantastic experience, so kudos to the team. What do you think, Rifa, are the primary challenges that Easy Paisa now faces as far as financial inclusion is concerned, and specifically women empowerment is concerned?
Thank you for that question. I think it's very important to first know that the only way this financial inclusion can take place is through digital financial inclusion, because the access that a digital platform can give to people, a brick and mortar bank unfortunately cannot. It cannot be placed at every nook and corner of the country. However, provided the number of smartphones that we have, the internet penetration is going up, I think that is the future. That is how we've placed ourselves. And also, we have the in-principle approval of being the first digital bank of Pakistan, which I think, and we're leading the cause of financial inclusion, especially for women. And we've been working very hard to get to women who, for example, there are a lot of women who voluntarily do not open their accounts, whether even if they're not from a very low-income background, because they feel that, the man of the house has an account, I don't need one. So we've been educating women from all stratas of life to include themselves, and right now the financial inclusion for women stands at 13% in Pakistan, which is a very, very low number. Even India next door is around 35–36%. And I think that the future lies with women, and that's what we are working towards. And they can only, in a society like Pakistan where women do not want to go out, and do not want to go to a brick and mortar, they're not comfortable. I think digital financial inclusion is can be their most important way of them being financially included. So I think Easy Paisa is already leading the front in that area.
Fantastic. I think one of the panelists came up to me that visiting from abroad, and they said, we don't see a lot of women in the room. So I've been very lucky to have a woman panelist on each of my panels, and I hope that all of you in your corporate spheres are doing their utmost to sort of encourage women in both the workforce and also create that kind of empowerment. And that goes hand in hand with financial inclusion and women empowerment in general. Moving over to you, Christos, and thank you for joining us. So M&T Haaland is a fantastic story emerging from the Middle East, emerging from Egypt, and now becoming a regional powerhouse. A unicorn after its last raise of over $200 million. And M&T Haaland has taken the bold step to not only come into Pakistan, but into other geographies in the region as well. How do you see the broader sort of regional landscape as far as financial inclusion is concerned, as far as empowerment is concerned, and how do you see M&T Haaland fitting into the region as a whole and into Pakistan, which we'll delve into more along in the conversation.
Thank you very much for this great question. I would like to take a few minutes, thank everybody for this great opportunity to be here. My name is Christos Argiriou. I'm the CEO of Haaland Microfinance Bank. This bank was followed by an acquisition by the group M&T in Egypt, which was founded by Mr. Munir Nakhla. It has been a great journey for M&T. It started initially in Egypt as a vehicle financing and pure microfinance play. Over the year, technology was introduced to the group, where we transitioned into addressing customers through a ride-hailing app called Haaland. And then we pivoted into a full-fledged financial technology company, which enabled us to be the leading lending services company and financial technology company in Egypt. The transaction that you were referring to that made us a unicorn was a blessing from investors to take this model, this full ecosystem that was developed, into the wider region. We are here very blessed to be. Pakistan was our first country. I've been personally looking after the country since 2022. The founder was looking very closely since 2021. And in the past year, we've been also present in Turkey, UAE, Saudi Arabia. It took us some time to go outside of Egypt. We spent a good 10 to 12 years, but now we have a full ecosystem that we are able to leverage on our own technology and core banking software, and we're able to deploy in many places in the world. In terms of the landscape that we're seeing, we see a huge adoption from the regulators, a very strong push on the digitization and financial inclusion in all countries, Egypt, the MENA region, and Pakistan. A lot of fintech players now have been growing all around us, and we're actually encouraging this because we are looking at this as a new wave of adoption, the same way that the telecoms had done decades before. And I'm very glad to be here. I mean, Pakistan, the similarities between the culture of Pakistan and Egypt are huge. We've learned a lot of lessons between the two nations, and maybe we can delve more into details in the second part. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, a story of pivots, and as with any sort of startup that's looking into technology and working in the sort of finance sphere as well, Haaland has been sort of constantly reinventing itself as it's been growing across not just Egypt, but now in the region. And we really appreciate your sort of vote of confidence into Pakistan, and hope the journey is just beginning and it's going to be an exciting journey moving forward. Shifting gears a bit and moving over to Mohammed Masood from Garanco. Garanco is on a mission to develop local credit capital markets and provide credit solutions especially in lower income countries. Could you share with us, Mohammed, any lessons or any sort of impact stories that you've looked at in the broader region or outside of Pakistan? And then what could that possibly mean for us in Pakistan as well?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Osman, for the question. And yeah, before I start, I'd like to echo Christos' thanks for the organizers and for the audience. Let me, before start, let's just set up the scene, a little bit of what Garanco and Pitch do and Infrazaman. So Garanco is a risk mitigation solution provider. We are part of a bigger group called Pitch, Private Infrastructure Development Group, which is funded by 7 of the G12 governments. And we also have our local affiliate here, which is Infrazaman. I'm sure a lot of people in the room will be familiar with. We've been working closely with them in Pakistan. Within the group, we have 3 main pillars that we focus on. So first, mobilizing private investment, mobilizing private credit in local currency. So we believe that there is a lot of incumbent funds in the country, on the developing countries we work on, that can be utilized for the development before tapping international investors. Second is developing financial markets. So what we think is it's not only enough for us to do a deal and that's it. It's more of developing the capabilities in the local markets. And to give an example, I was just discussing with a client yesterday for a meeting, and they're more in the CNI solar business, but they said what we've done with them a few years ago paved the way for other investors and other banks to do the transaction without our guarantee. And I always joke about it. We are in the business of being obsolete. By this, I mean that we want to try to work with the banks, work with the investors, but we want to build the capability so next time this deal comes or similar deal comes, the banks and the investors are comfortable to do it by themselves without our guarantee. And moving on to give maybe a bit of a closer example to Pakistan. So InfraZaman, last year they've worked with Cash Foundation. Probably some people are familiar with the name as well. So it's a non-for-profit organization. They focus on financial inclusion solutions. And then they work a lot in the microfinance sphere. And then InfraZaman worked with them. They provided 100% guarantee on a 2.5 billion rupees. And then by doing this, given that InfraZaman has a AAA rating by PACRA, right? So they mobilized, or they enabled them to not only tap new types of investors, because before that they were just limited to banks, but also they managed to do this at a much cheaper rate, right? So I think to summarize, what I'm trying to say here is there's a lot of potential, right? I think there's a big role for local capital and private investment in the country, not only in financial inclusion side, but also in power and EV and a lot of other initiatives that have been discussed over yesterday and today. And I think it's very important, InfraZaman, Garanco, and Pitch overall, we want to lead on that, and we want to collaborate with everyone in the market to spearhead this.
Excellent. I mean, these are the sorts of stories of teaming up and collaborating with both international partners and local partners to address really pressing challenges on the ground, and we appreciate your efforts in that regard as well. Focusing in and narrowing once sort of shifting focus towards the local sort of efforts with NBP funds. We have Amjad Wahid Saab over here, and NBP funds has been doing some incredible work as well with some fantastic performance numbers. I was doing some research and I looked up that your assets under management just this past year have grown from 301 billion to 420 billion. And this kind of sort of growth of doubling or compounding sort of annual growth over year on year has been quite common at NBP funds. So fantastic work you've been doing, and it's not just been sort of resting on your laurels, but also incorporating new technologies, whether that's WhatsApp self-service, mobile applications, or introducing new products like Islamic savings funds. NBP has also focused a lot on inclusivity, driving some focus on SMEs as well. So that's my 2 bits of marketing on your behalf. But the question I wanted to ask you is, what are the challenges that NBP funds is facing as far as financial inclusion is concerned? And how do you see the sort of overall NBP funds related and mutual funds related sort of landscape evolving moving forward?
Thank you, Usman. First of all, mutual funds play a very key role in financial inclusion. And it starts with the fact that basically, a common man does not even have, either has the time or the expertise to invest in stock market, bond market, money market, treasury bills, and that's where mutual funds come in, providing the diversification and the expertise and offering a one-window operation, where investors can, through us, reach the capital markets. And then I think one other factor where we are educating the investors is how to meet their long-term financial goals. Typical financial goals for any person is, retirement, building a house, educating their children, and so on. So we sit down with the investor and we sort of take them through their financial journey and how much they need to save, where they need to invest to reach their objectives. Mutual fund industry now have grown to about 1 million, investors, which I think is very low number. If you look at India, there are 191 million mutual fund investors. In Pakistan, there are about 1 million. So if we assume that, obviously our population is 1/7, we should still have 27 million. So there are challenges. I think one of the challenges is the saving rate, low savings rate in Pakistan, which is about 13% versus about 30% in India and Bangladesh. So when people save less, they invest less, It's a part of our culture, and then our per capita income is also relatively lower. So that has an impact. And I think then the national savings schemes, which offer a very high return, for sovereign risk, almost no risk, they are a challenge. Obviously, government offers that return from the taxpayers' money, but it becomes difficult for us to compete there. And then, we charge a relatively low fee, 1.2%. So in that fee to, educate investors, to open branches, to, so those are challenges, but we are, I think, growing well. We are growing as an industry at about 35–40% per year. And now that basically retirement plans, government retirement plans are also coming to us, I think hopefully going forward, the growth will be more exponential.
I guess, I hear you loud and clear that the sort of rate of savings in Pakistan should be much more. And I think one of the challenges that a lot of people do face when there's savings is that a lot of the savings isn't showing up in the documented economy as well. So that's one of the other tasks of financial inclusion hopefully aims to sort of resolve, is documenting that economy and bringing that on board. So both things can move sort of parallel together. Hot off the presses, when I was sort of flying over and coming back to Pakistan, I was looking at the latest sort of news from SBP and the proposed changes to the Act. So moving to you, Rifa, we see that State Bank has proposed some changes to the Act which haven't been adopted yet, but the topic of digital currencies is now sort of in the news, and there seems to be some movement in that direction. How would Easy Paisa look at digital currencies, and would that improve any of the sort of the rates of sort of inclusion that we're going to be looking at over the next few years and decades to come?
I think first and foremost, I think it's important that this has been recognized as something important in Pakistan, which till now has not been. Digital currencies all over the world are becoming popular even as an investment, but in Pakistan this is still not a regularized market. So I think the first thing is that it will be regulated once we have a CBDC. And it's important for this regulation to improve digital financial inclusion in Pakistan. I think it shows the importance digital takes over brick and mortar in the book of SBP, which means that the country is moving towards digital inclusion. This can pose problems maybe in the future, but I think for starting point, I think it's important that digital is the way forward for any kind of financial inclusion in Pakistan, because it is not the kind of population we have. It is not possible for brick and mortar to be in every place, and also it is important to be less cash dependent. For us as a country to move to financial inclusion, and digital currency obviously is a step in that direction. So step in the right direction will take some time, and for Easy Paisa, digital currency goes hand in hand because we're a digital bank. So I think adopting a digital currency obviously improves the digital financial inclusion for Pakistan. And we are ready to adopt it, and I think it's important to be agile and to be adaptable for something like a digital currency.
Absolutely. Moving over to you, Christos, you guys have obviously made this acquisition in Pakistan, taking over Advance and now rebranding that to M&T Harlan. We were talking about SBP, the state bank. Naturally, you've had a lot of dealings with them and you've worked with them very closely. And I'm sure that you have some stories there. But without putting you on the spot too much, what I want to really ask you is, as you were sort of looking at Pakistan, what was the case for Pakistan, not just to M&T Harlan as a holding, but yourself as well? So, and why Pakistan, why now? And what can we really expect from M&T Harlan or Pakistan in the next few months and years?
Thank you very much for the question. So one more thing before answering this question about our identity and who we are, which defines why we came to your country. We are a very consumer-focused entity. Yes, we are a lender, but we're not a lender to a borrower that takes a loan and moves on. We actually have a mission to take these underbanked and poor entrepreneurs to the next level. So we start with very small loans. Our average loan size in Egypt is around the equivalent of 200,000 PKR. And we will manage to grow a loan book. We managed to onboard millions of customers on our application and to grow our loan size to close to $1 billion. So looking at the demographics, first of all, of Egypt and Pakistan, 100 million population, your country being 240 million, and the informal economy being in such big compared to the formal economy, which is also very similar to Egypt, our ability to be able to provide financing to and outreach to people in 24,000 districts all over Egypt is something that we've been very successful in doing by being very focused and passionate about our customer. Where do they live? How do they behave? What do they need? And how can they keep growing? So this is not a one-off, this is one journey that keeps growing. In your country, the similarities are stunning. We were actually, so our first, of course, move, given our identity as a microfinance player in the establishment, was to go through a microfinance banking entity that can also raise funds from deposits. And we were able very fast to implement a turnaround. It was a small bank that we acquired, and now we're aiming to grow it to a scale that would be even bigger than Egypt as well, using the same approach, using our own technology, using the very deep know-how that we have in Egypt that is really focused on rural areas. A lot of people in Pakistan are avoiding, in my discussions, the agri because of the risks, the unsecure financing. We are doing the exact opposite. We are focusing on unsecured financing. We're also doing a big portion in agri, and we're very focused on doing EMI, equal monthly installments, so that we can be always close to our customers. We've seen also a lot of very successful players on the ground, so we're not the only ones. And when we met with these people, we found that they are very similar to what we're doing. Our dream is, as a next step, is to introduce the Harlan app and to start having Harlan all over the world. Something along the lines of Kaspi in Kazakhstan and Nubank in Brazil, who have been able to be the bank of choice for millions and millions of customers, because these customers recognize that this is not just a loan, this is also a growth path where we keep growing the loan as our borrowers keep repaying their loans. And we're very excited to be here. So far, our journey has been very good. We've been looking at your country during the tough times. We're very glad, I mean, after hearing the Minister of Finance and the talks that we've been hearing of how the budget deficit is improving and the current account is improving, and we are promising that our work on the ground will also contribute to this growth, because we've witnessed the prosperity that this kind of financing creates. Actually, we see providing financial access as electricity. We see it as a basic human right. We are very happy, and I think I'm very fortunate while working to be able to have such a huge impact. The statistics say that one loan to one of our poor customers contributes to a job of 3 two to three people as well. So this is really something that we're very proud of, and we have a huge mission here, and we are promising to all stakeholders to deliver. The regulators, as you mentioned, have been very encouraging, and I think we live in an ecosystem where all the stakeholders are empowering us, encouraging us, and we're very positive about our mission here and in other places as well. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. I mean, these are the sorts of...
Thank you.
With some of the brands or very well-known brands sort of leaving the country in the last few months, and we all know who they are, it's always lovely to see the commitment in the region and these sorts of brands coming in and sort of creating this sort of air of optimism. And we need that optimism in the country, and we need to sort of move forward. So really appreciate, Christos, your thoughts there, and kudos to Harlan, and best of luck. And I hope that the other collaborators of the ecosystem, and there's many present here today, will open this sort of competition and collaborate with you with open arms. Mohammed, Garanco is obviously providing these kinds of credit solutions and financing solutions in Pakistan together with Infrazaman. What are the sort of top 2 or 3 recommendations or prescriptions you would offer to sort of decision makers or large corporate entities in the country on how to sort of look at providing those services and sort of make your life easier as well?
Okay, that's a good one. I think one of the things that we really struggle with, and I do think maybe a lot of people in the room here will agree with me, is predictability. Right? We work in a lot of developing countries, and I know this is a theme across as well, but I think over the last few years, predictability or being able to forecast the future with high level of certainty. Being able to forecast the future with high level of certainty has been one of our challenges, and I dare to say maybe a lot of other investors, right? And I think there are 2 elements for this. There's obviously things under our control and things out of our control. Out of our control, we know that. We all know this, right? Inflation, the war, whether in Russia, Ukraine, or Gaza, floods, right? Again, so there are certain things that we can't really control. But what we can do, and to your question, what we can do with the regulators, with the financial system, with investors, right, is to work together. We're talking about the SBP approval, right? To work together in terms of setting the right frameworks, right? So when the development starts happening, Pakistan is more resilient, right? So you have these frameworks in place that we are not reactive, but we're proactive, right? And in order for this to happen, I think it's very important to have these dialogues and conferences and learning from each other, right? In order for us to share the knowledge, and in order for Pakistan to be ready for that. These are the things that we can control. So we have a conference more about, green bond. All these things are things and frameworks that the regulators, the investors, the banks can all sit together, get this in place. So it's alleviating some of the uncertainties, right? So we can move forward and we be ready to, whenever investment is here, we can move on.
Absolutely. Predictability, I think that's, you've really nailed, you've really sort of hit the nail on the head. That's one of the themes, and thank you for validating, because Asfar, my partner, also mentioned this in his opening address, that one of the things we really need is long-term regulations, or sort of stability as far as the regulatory framework is concerned, and we wouldn't all mind some political stability as well if that can come along with that. So yeah, absolutely. My time's up, but I'm just, if I can just ask you to very, very quickly, if I were to say you are finance minister for a day, or the governor of the state bank, what are the one or two things or three things you would immediately do? Sorry to put you on the spot, but I really want to hear your candid thoughts on that.
Well, I think our finance minister is doing a very good job, so I don't want to be in his position. But let me reframe the question. If I have to make three suggestions to the finance minister, I think the first one will be to expedite privatization. We cannot simply afford, to provide $4 billion of subsidies and grants to these state-owned enterprises. And where privatization is not possible, lease it out to the private sector for 30 years. India in the last 2 years have leased out, about $25 billion of their assets to the private sector for a 30-year grant. The second suggestion is reduce the corporate tax rate. Corporate sector creates 9 out of 10 jobs, exports, so reduce the tax rate. It's impacting capital formation. And that will be possible when the government size is reduced, when there's privatization, it will create room to reduce that. The third is education. As you know, we are way behind in education. So what India did in 2004, they introduced a 2% education cess on all types of incomes, whether it's from service or customs or income tax, and then in 2007, they increased it from 2% to 3%. And today, the secondary school enrollment in India is 80%. In Pakistan, we are at about 45%. We need to spend on education, and I think I'll stop here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. From your lips to the finance minister, whoever makes a decision, to his ears, hopefully that happens. Thank you very much. Over to you, Jules.
Thank you so much for another insightful panel. And obviously, as Usman said, you can really feel this air of optimism in Pakistan. So we are now going to present our esteemed guests with their souvenirs. So could I please ask Amir Shahzad, the Executive Director of Unity Foods, and from Nutshell, Chief Marshal Sohail Aman. I would also like to invite Ramat Hasni, President and CEO of the National Bank of Pakistan, to come and present these souvenirs. Please can we give them a round of applause? So for our first souvenir, we'd like to present Arifa Kadri. Please, round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. And for our next souvenir, to Christos Argiru, who is the Chief Executive Officer of MNT Hallen Pak BV. Round of applause, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Next we have Mohammed Masood to be presented. May Ramat Hasni please present the souvenir. And Dr. Amjad Waheed. Thank you, Ramat Hasni, for presenting the souvenirs. And could I please ask Farina Mazur from Nutshell Group to join on stage for the group photo? Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to our esteemed guests.